The rain hammered against the corrugated metal roof of Adnan's workshop. Like bullets from heaven, he wiped his grease-stained hands on an equally dirty rag and glanced at the ancient chronometer mounted on his workbench. Another 16-hour day fixing broken hoverbikes and plasma generators for the lower districts of Neo-Karachi. The work never stopped in the slums. A sharp knock echoed through the workshop, barely audible over the storm. Adnan frowned. Who would venture out in weather like this? He opened the reinforced door to find two figures huddled under a makeshift shelter of salvaged metal sheeting. "Please," said the taller one, her voice melodic despite the chattering of her teeth. "We need somewhere to stay for the night." Adnan's eyes widened. Even drenched and shivering, these weren't ordinary street dwellers. The speaker had striking silver hair that seemed to shimmer with its own light, and her companion, shorter but with the same ethereal quality, possessed hair like spun gold. Both wore clothes that, despite being soaked, appeared to be made from materials far too expensive for this part of the city. But what truly caught Adnan's attention were their eyes, vertical pupils like a serpent's, set in irises that swirled with colors he'd never seen before. "I'm Alvina," the silver-haired girl continued, gesturing to her companion. "This is my sister Zara. We got separated from our transport." Adnan should have been suspicious. In the slums, trusting strangers could get you killed. But something about their situation tugged at his conscience. These girls looked no older than his own sister would have been, had she survived the plague that swept through the outer colonies. "Come in," he said, stepping aside. "You'll catch your death out there." His workshop wasn't much, a cramped space filled with spare parts, half-assembled machinery, and the perpetual smell of industrial lubricants. But it was warm and dry. Adnan quickly cleared a space near the small heating unit he'd cobbled together from salvaged components. "Thank you," Alvina said, her relief palpable. "You're very kind." "Don't mention it," Adnan replied, rummaging through a storage crate. "I've got some emergency rations here somewhere, and there's a water purification unit over there if you're thirsty." As the girls settled in, Adnan noticed more peculiarities. Their movements were too graceful, almost predatory. When Zara accidentally knocked over a heavy wrench, she caught it midair with reflexes that defied human limitation. And sometimes, just sometimes, he could swear he saw tiny wisps of smoke curling from their nostrils when they breathed. But Adnan had learned not to ask too many questions in the slums. Everyone had secrets, and survival often depended on minding your own business. "What kind of work do you do?" Alvina asked, examining a partially dismantled gravity compensator with obvious expertise. "Mechanical repair, mostly," Adnan said, surprised by her technical interest. "Keep the hover bikes running, fix household appliances, that sort of thing. Not glamorous, but it pays the bills." "You modified this compensator's flux inhibitor," Zara observed, speaking for the first time. Her voice was softer than her sister's but carried an undertone of authority. "That's actually quite clever. It should improve efficiency by at least 12%. Adnan blinked. Most people in the slums couldn't even pronounce flux inhibitor, let alone analyze his modifications. "You know engineering?" he asked. The sisters exchanged a quick glance. "We've had good teachers," Alvina said diplomatically. They spent the evening talking about technology, sharing the simple meal Adnan had prepared, and gradually warming up both physically and socially. Despite their obvious secrets, the girls were genuinely pleasant company. Alvina had a sharp wit and an infectious laugh, while Zara possessed a quiet wisdom that seemed far beyond her apparent years. As the night wore on, exhaustion finally claimed them. Adnan offered the girls his own sleeping alcove while he made do with a bedroll on the workshop floor. It wasn't comfortable, but he'd slept in worse places. He was awakened before dawn by the sound of approaching vehicles. Not the sputtering hoverbikes common to the slums, but the smooth hum of military-grade transports. Bright lights flooded through the workshop's single window, and Adnan's blood went cold. "Alvina," he whispered urgently, shaking the girl awake. "Someone's here. We need to—" The workshop door exploded inward, reduced to twisted metal by some unseen force. Figures in gleaming armor poured through the opening, their weapons trained on everything that moved. At their head strode a being that made Adnan's knees weak with terror. Nearly 8 feet tall, with scales that shifted between deep purple and black, the newcomer possessed an aura of such raw power that the air itself seemed to vibrate around him. His eyes, the same vertically pupilled eyes as the girl's, burned with the fury of a dying star. "Father," Alvina called out, stepping protectively in front of Adnan. He helped us. Father? Adnan's mind reeled. This creature was clearly not human, and if he was these girls' father, then they were. Emperor Draconis, Zara said formally, bowing to the towering figure. The human showed us kindness when we needed shelter. Emperor, Draconis, dragon. The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. Adnan had given shelter to the daughters of the draconic emperor, ruler of the most powerful star-spanning empire in known space. The same empire that human colonies had been fighting a desperate war against for the past decade. A human, the emperor rumbled, his voice like distant thunder. Each word seemed to carry the weight of worlds. Sheltered my daughters. Adnan forced himself to stand straight, though every instinct screamed at him to flee. If he was going to die, he'd face it with dignity. I did what anyone decent would do, he said, surprised by the steadiness of his own voice. The emperor's burning gaze fixed on him for what felt like eternity. Then, impossibly, the corner of his mouth turned upward in what might have been a smile. Indeed, he said, perhaps there is more to your species than we have given credit for. The war, Adnan realized, had just taken a very interesting turn.